That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Surfer, the fourth film directed by Lorcan Finnegan, which premiered in the midnight section at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival. Lionsgate and Roadside Attractions are releasing it May 2nd, 2025.
Do you know this director's other films?
Yeah, I believe we have a review out there for Vivarium, his sophomore film with Jesse Eisenberg and I believe Imogen Poots. Nocebo, starring Ava Green, who I'm a big fan of. I think we didn't review, there might have been a written review for that, but yes, and now here we are with The Surfer.
What is The Surfer about? A man returns to the idyllic beach of his childhood to surf with his son. When he is humiliated by a group of locals, the man is drawn into a conflict that keeps rising and pushes him to his breaking point. What is your pull quote?
A frustrating, agonizing satire on delusional masculinity and materialism, The Surfer postures as a violent fever dream as a response to gentrification and perverted class aspirations, but its comic ambiguities diminish its potential.
Mine. There's a profound message to be found within The Surfer. Unfortunately, it's clouded by a gonzo lead performance and a monotonous narrative.
Yeah, it is Nick Cage, so he's trying to give his little quirks.
The profound message to me is what I think, there's an aspect of the story that I think is speaking to an attack on masculinity. And there's something to that I think could be so amazing. I kept thinking I wanted this to feel like if you mix Lord of the Flies and Night Bitch.
Okay. I did think of Lord of the Flies.
But ultimately what do I really like about the movie? That sort of morsel of a story that we'll get to. I think the cinematography.
Radek Ladchik was the cinematographer who lensed Nocebo, and also Jennifer Kent likes to use them. They lensed The Nightingale and The Babadook.
It looks fantastic. There are a lot of really cool flourishes. I think the score is also really cool.
Francois Tetat, the composer who scored another film that I thought was interesting called Judy and Punch.
But Nicolas Cage, I don't know. He's going on my worst hair list.
Well, yeah, that is bad hair. But
his beard and wig are dyed to be this like really brassy, dark blonde color, and then he's often with the very blue sky behind him. It's pretty jarring.
Weird beard, a Nicolas Cage saga.
Weird beard. So the story. Nicolas Cage plays this guy who we find out grew up in Australia, but after his father committed suicide when Nicolas Cage was like an adolescent, he moved to the United States. But now he's back again, and I don't know how long he's been in Australia. He doesn't have an accent. But he has a teenage son. Like, the kid looks, what, 18, 17?
He's definitely in the upper echelons of adolescence, played by Finn Little. And that young man definitely has an accent, so yes. I think.
And so does the woman who, like the mother, because we hear her on the phone.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So he's back, and we meet Nicolas Cage and his son driving to the beach. And this beach has significance because it's the beach town where Nicolas Cage grew up. And he has pulled his son out of school for the day because he wants to share with his son that he is about to buy the house he grew up in. And he's been trying to do this for forever. And it's now back on the market. But when they get to the beach, when they try to get onto the sand, the locals basically attack them and say, don't live here, don't surf here.
He can't even get to the path down the beach without somebody shoving him.
But the supposed leader of this group, who we come to find out are called the Bay Boys, is played by
Julian McMahon, who you might know as Dr. Doom from the initial Fantastic Four films from, I guess, 20-some years ago now almost.
He tells Nicolas Cage, listen, I know it's hard to get punked in front of your kid, but I'm doing you a favor by letting you skedaddle. And so the son is like, come on, Dad, let's go. They leave. But Nicolas Cage brings his crazy ass back to the beach. And all this movie takes place like in the parking lot in front of the shore. And he's back because he was prepared to buy the house for whatever he had settled on with his loan officer, but then the realtor says, oh, someone else bid on it and it's a cash bid. So if you even want to be a contender, you better up your bid like 100,000.
Immediately. You have 48 hours.
And it seems like Nicolas Cage's character is already overextended, so that's stressing him out. And he has chosen to basically spend the night in this parking lot waiting.
Well, I don't think he was initially going to spend the night, but things happened that caused him to. Like, it seemed like he wanted to, and he's trying to enjoy this area and revel in, his youth before trauma struck.
There's so much about his actions that don't make sense to me.
That too.
But the film is just, from scene to scene, it's like more miserable things happen. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's important to know that early on, we meet this homeless man living out of his raggedy-ass Subaru in the parking lot.
Played by Nic Cassim.
And we get a lot of understanding from his character as to who the leader of the Bay Boys, his character's name is
Scally. Scallywag.
We find out that Scally is very rich. His family basically owns all of this beach town. And Nicolas Cage kind of grew up with this guy. Mm-hmm. So he knows him. But the homeless man is saying that those guys are bad. Watch out for them. I believe they killed my son and my dog. Mm-hmm. But bad things start happening. These people start picking on Nicolas Cage, who stays in the parking lot. He ends up calling the police after a surfboard gets stolen. A police officer comes the next morning. And we find out that that police officer is basically friends with the Bay Boys, so he's not going to do shit. And then all of a sudden, like the middle portion of the film is Nicolas Cage has lost it. And I fully thought we were in a fever dream because he basically becomes the homeless man. Mm-hmm. Like now he's operating out of this man's car because his Lexus LS 500 has been taken. So as the audience, I fully thought, oh, maybe he always was the homeless man and him with his son in the fancy car was just a dream. More bad things start to happen when all of a sudden, because at one point early on in the film, the battery to his Lexus had died and some very nice lady gave him a jump start.
Miranda Tapsell, who you might recognize from the Wayne Blair film, The Sapphires.
And she also is a photographer and had taken some photographs of Nicolas Cage in front of his car, which these Bay Boys had vandalized. I think they like carved kook on the side of the car. So,
because he indeed is flying over the cuckoo's nest.
So now that he has fully lost his mind and he's in the parking lot and it fully is a fever dream and he's yelling at all the people trying to enjoy the day, he sees this lady and goes, "Hey, do you remember me?" And she's like, "Yes, my God, what happened to you?" "Didn't I have a car?" She's like, "Yeah." And then she starts looking through her camera, her digital camera, and pulls up the image. And sure enough, she has a picture of Nicolas Cage in his suit before he looked like the homeless man in front of his Lexus.
He's like, "I had a car." He's like, "I have a son."
And then Nicolas Cage loses it. He grabs, there's a locals only, like makeshift locals only sign. He grabs that sign and whoops some man's ass, shoves a dead rat in his mouth, all that. And that's when Scally comes and says, hold on, I can help you." As the audience and Nicolas Cage, we saw, I think, the night or 2 nights prior, because Nicolas Cage has been in this parking lot for like 3 nights.
In the baking sun.
Yes. We had seen that these guys have a club, and basically the club is a space for these men to come and be men. It's a free space where they can say what they want to say, they can be aggro, and no one's going to judge them. And they're acknowledging, like, we know that we can't be this way in public. No one wants to see that. And we don't want to be monsters either. They say we don't want to go back to like the repressive ideals of our grandfathers and such. So they just seem like they're trying to have a safe space to blow off some steam. So now that Nicolas Cage has lost it and assaulted one of them, Scally says, "I'm going to help you." And then we find out that all of this was a test.
More or less.
And that Nicolas Cage has passed the test.
Almost.
And so they initiate him, which we had already seen includes being branded like a damn cow. But then one of the guys, the realtor actually, who's part of the Bay Boys Club, they start talking a little bit too much and they reveal a secret that we had kind of been told about earlier, because the homeless man is very angry towards the Bay Boys because he believes that they are responsible for the death of his son and his dog. And so Nicolas Cage starts asking about it, and they say, well, yes, the son did kill himself, but we're not directly involved. Okay, well, did you kill the dog? Yes. So Nicolas Cage feels a way about it. We can tell. And so Scally says, okay, well, you have one more test. You need to light that homeless man's Subaru on fire. And he does. And then his son pops up on a bicycle. I don't know how close they live to this house.
But he's like, Dad, where you been? It's Christmas Day.
That's how we learn the days have passed and it's Christmas. And that's when Skelly tells the son, your dad really stepped up. Like, he's really a man and he's one of us now. So you are more than welcome. Come on down. Please enjoy the beach. And they go down there and that homeless man pops up. And we already knew he had a gun. He brandishes that gun. He sees everyone down on the beach and he runs down there and he's going to do something. He finds out he only has 3 bullets left and he lets all the guys go except 3 of them. Nicolas Cage, his son, and Scally. And right as we think he's about to kill all of them, we know that Nicolas Cage had taken a necklace from the Subaru before he burned it up.
It's a shark tooth that was the prize for this surfing competition that supposedly
the homeless man's son won.
Heavy duty, yeah.
So this homeless man and his son were really into surfing, like Nicolas Cage and his son. So Nicolas Cage gives back the necklace and says, man, all I wanted to do when we got here that day was take my son surfing. Let me surf. So the homeless man lets Nicolas Cage and his son run off and surf. And then we see him kill Scally and himself. The end.
Yes. And earlier we had seen bodies on the beach. There are flashbacks to Nic Cage's father. So I think there might be room to interpret whether some of this might be in the surfer's head.
What I was really hoping this would have been is a little more or less ambiguous. Like, Nicolas Cage has arrived. He has a breakdown because his life is falling apart. Because I don't think I mentioned, the mother of his son, they're separated. And she has told him on the phone, after he's been bullied by these guys, you need to sign the divorce papers. And that's when he sort of cracks. And I thought that also, what is that Michael Douglas movie?
Falling Down.
I kind of wanted more of that because the other problem I have with Nicolas Cage in this role is he's not a very sympathetic character. I kind of found him to be like a dick. Like, in his real life, he's probably a nightmare, this character.
Well, he's just so pathetic.
There's a reason why your wife is trying to leave you, sir, or has left you.
Well, it's giving, and I don't like Death of a Salesman, the Arthur Miller classic, but Willy Loman is,
pathetic.
A pathetic character, and he's giving me Willy Loman.
Yes.
So that makes my skin crawl.
I know. The entire time I was just like, oh, you're so annoying.
And then it gets to be so excessive that it's an outright comedy because he's chomping on a dead rat. Somebody has smeared like dog poo over the drinking fountain, and then a dog is actually sitting by it. That seems wild. So rather than that, he's drinking the water that you're not supposed to drink in the public restroom. He's eating birds' eggs while a bird's shitting on him. It's like every possible thing. I mean, it's almost, Book of Job level what's happening to him.
We see him go into that dirty public restroom, get barefoot, go take a shit. Like, I just don't understand.
The very first night, he knows that there's these kids, these men down on the beach are like a menace to society and dangerous, and he's afraid of them. And they'd ordered pizza. Some kid shows up with like 15 pizzas. He's like, can I buy one? He's like, are you a bay boy? He's like, for you, it'll be $100. He pays $100 to this pizza.
Man pays for
He knows that there is tomfoolery going on and goes to the bathroom, and they come back and steal a surfboard, and that $100 pizza is on the ground. Like,
if his son lives close enough that he could ride his bike over there and was not sweaty, I don't understand why his character couldn't just, why did he need to stay the night in that parking lot?
Well, because he called the cops and he waits for them they don't show up till morning. There are just too many points. Up till that point, it's kind of the tipping off point where it's just like, the cop's not going to help you. You need to leave here and regroup.
It bothered me that his character, once we find out that he really is experienced, he really has been there and he's been going through it. And of course, whatever we're seeing is probably exaggerated what's in his mind, and he's delirious from because it's a convergence of, not only is his wife asking him to finally sign the divorce papers, she tells him she's pregnant by her new man. clearly his son is disappointed in him. He's being bullied by these people. He's probably not going to get the house because the loan officer is telling him, like, I don't think
He's let his phone die. There's a whole sequence about the phone, which is annoying as hell, and a payphone. But it was, it was reminding me of a lot of other things as well. Initially, I mean, besides like the Thomas Wolfe sentiment, like, you can't go home again, and you shouldn't, man. I think the photographer lady tells him, like, maybe you just weren't meant to be here. It's like, yeah, move on. But at first I was like interested to see if this was going down a route of that Frank Perry film, The Swimmer, with Burt Lancaster.
Oh yeah,
because Nic Cage is
which
also,
I really like.
I do as well. But that film is very much from within the period that it's made in the late '60s. But it was giving me that. It also, if Harry Crews had written Fight Club, is what this feels like. Because I read a book by him recently called "Karate is a Thing of the Spirit," is the name of the book, about this cult, like people practicing karate on the beach, mixed with Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. It feels like that. Yeah,
I just felt unsatisfied, like just miserableness. Like, I felt so desensitized by the end that just all this crazy shit is happening to him that doesn't seem to make any sense. I don't feel like he's someone, like, I just didn't feel sorry for this guy.
Well, and I don't understand. That's why I think maybe if I ever were to rewatch it, to pay closer attention to some of the ambiguities, because when he strangles that man in the water and
tells him, eat the rat,
isn't invited. That's like,
which made me think of they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, eat the cat. That remix of Donald Trump saying that.
Oh, I was thinking of Julia Roberts in August Osage County when she says, eat the fish, bitch, to Meryl Streep. But at that point where it seems like they orchestrated this whole hazing experience for Nicolas Cage, even though Julian McMahon says, I recognize you, like, okay. Scally says you have to experience nothing, which is very close to a line from Fight Club, which is, it's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. But again, I think that's the most interesting part about this club of men going ham on the beach every night, and presumably never leaving.
Never leaving.
They're never, because my first thought was, like, if I experienced like the first couple of things that happened, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go grab some gasoline and come back at night and burn your little shed down while you're in it. But that's just my thought. It also, as you had mentioned after we watched it, like, because the director and the screenwriter, Thomas Martin, are Irish, this doesn't bode well for her.
Oh, I wrote down, I know the Australian Tourism Board is going to be mad at this movie, because this made me feel like when I first watched Hostel and Hostel 2, and I'm like, I am never going to Eastern Europe. Plot twist, I have been, and it's lovely. But
I agree.
This movie made me never want to go to Australia.
It reminded me of that Julia Garner film, I think Kitty Green directed it, The Royal Hotel.
Oh yes, it's based on a true story.
This also reminded me of a classic, an excellent film by Ted Kotcheff called Wake in Fright. You could have called this Surf in Fright, actually, where Donald Pleasance is kind of harassed by, there's a lot of drinking and awful things happening to this man in this movie, that movie takes you on a journey. And I was wanting this to be more like that as well, but the switch after he's initiated into the club, like, psychologically, none of it makes sense for this character either.
I could see people liking this movie. The man sitting next to me was on the literal edge of his seat. Like, I mean, it was like you would have thought this was the most suspenseful movie ever made. So maybe there is a thriller component to it, because it's like, what's going to happen? And I think ultimately,
I mean, I laugh. Nicolas Cage is just inherently funny to watch with his little tics and mannerisms, and it makes no sense that he's reduced to about to eat he's going to eat a rat that he's banged to death against.
That was the only part that I think was funny to me, is when Nicolas Cage kills that rat and then throws it and then goes, picks it up and puts it in his pocket.
We just watched something where somebody did that to a seagull on a boat, and I can't think of the scene, and it's not Robert Pattinson in The Lighthouse, but that man sitting next to you was like, oh, shocked.
So maybe I'm very in the middle. It's a no for me, because I see something so grand in this that I wanted, like, I wish we would have just focused more on that and then maybe had a different lead actor. But
Sure.
anyway.
Oh, and the thing about getting back to the house, Nitram, the Justin Kurzel film with Caleb Landry Jones about the mass shooter in Australia. But that was one of his things that young man was trying to do. Is they're desperate to get to this house, this property that was just outside of their reach. So again, there are very interesting things. The few people I've talked to from Australia at film festivals and stuff, I've had conversations with people about real estate issues in the country and foreign entities kind of buying everything up and kind of simmering resentment going on. So, but again, I don't know that any of that's really apparent, or they just happen to write a film that they could shoot in Australia. I don't know.
What would you give The Surfer?
2.5.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.